So when we talk about oligosaccharides, it's a term probably a lot of people haven't heard before. What you have in carbohydrate chemistry, carbohydrates are basically just chains of much smaller pieces of carbohydrate that are hooked together. Those smaller pieces are called saccharides. So you have monosaccharides like fructose or glucose, and then you have disaccharides, which is fructose and glucose kind of hooked together. Sucrose is one of those, for example. And then you have longer chains, so more than 1 or 2 saccharides hooked together. You get up to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Those are generally considered oligosaccharides. So these oligosaccharides are longer chains of saccharides that humans cannot digest. We don't have the right enzymes to be able to break those down and make them into food. But the microbes in our gut, the microbiome, can do that. They do have the right enzymes to be able to break up these oligosaccharides and consume them. And in fact, that's one of the roles that they have. The microbiome, is a friendly, symbiotic part of our health system. And it's because they can consume these carbohydrates that we can't consume. So the sweet spot that you have is between 3 and 8 or 9 of these mono and disaccharide subunits in length, and that is the actual amount of complexity that you need to feed the microbiome. And in fact, it's the same amount of complexity that you find in human mother's milk, which is usually thought to be probably the best microbiome food on the planet, right? The one that is responsible for helping a baby to develop its microbiome and to actually have a healthy functioning gut. So now that we understand what an oligosaccharide is, the other thing that is important to understand is that more different oligosaccharides is better. Just like having more different microbes in your gut is better, a more diverse ecosystem is healthier than a simpler one or an impoverished one. The food that you give to those microbes is also better if it's more complex. So as an analogy, if you've ever been hiking out in the mountains and you're in the middle of a beautiful forest and there's lots of different plants and lots of different animals because all of this diversity exists, you see that and you can understand, I think, inherently, just instinctively, how healthy that ecosystem is. But then you get out to a point where you can look out over the landscape and you see these patches of clear-cut forest where they've cut it down, they've cut the trees down, and they've harvested those trees. And instead of bringing back a natural ecosystem, they planted one kind of tree there in order to be able to harvest it later, right? So they might put in like a paper tree or something that could be used for that purpose. And that ecosystem just isn't as healthy or as vibrant as the one that contains all of these different species. You won't have the same number of animals that are there either, because the animals that depend on those plants, they won't find the plants that they need into it. So that kind of clear-cut monoculture, that's the equivalent of not having a lot of diversity in your microbiome. And that's what happens if people don't get enough of the diverse oligosaccharides to feed all of those different microbes that are present. And WellVine has a higher diversity of oligosaccharides, according to the researchers we work with, than any other food they've ever found. So